great pleasure to introduce Sabrina Tachdjian, a blockchain investor and head of Fintech and Payments Fund at the Hedera Foundation. Sabrina, it's so great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jay. It's great to be here.
Sabrina, you've had a very interesting career journey. You have a PhD in genomics and an MBA from NYU Stern. Your career has spanned genomics, corporate strategy, VC, and finally blockchain technology. Can you share a pivotal moment that led you to the world of crypto and blockchains?
Yes. So for me, I would say I was already working in technology. I came to blockchain late around 2017. I mean, I was aware of blockchain before that and cryptocurrency, but I wasn't like necessarily trading. But I came to it from a more technical angle. So I was working at Samsung at the time in the digital health team, and we were tasked to look at the applications of blockchain to medical data. Because we had a product that was related to, a medical data. And so that's kind of how I started exploring blockchain and what it could do. So it wasn't really so much from a digital asset perspective, it was more from a data privacy perspective. And of course, around that time also, there was a lot of noise in the markets. It was one of the, not the first bull run, but the most publicized one with the ICO boom and everything. So when the time came for me to look for my next challenge, I was quite open to working in the blockchain space. And then a bit serendipitously, I met with someone at Line, the messaging app, around the time that they were setting up their blockchain team. And I joined, so early 2018. And I ended up leading their blockchain investments. And at the time, very few people actually had a blockchain background, so it was actually okay to be new to that space. And yeah, I just kind of learned as I went.
Fascinating. So I want to dive into that a bit more because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, your background is originally in genomics and like chemical engineering, so very much hard STEM. Mm-hmm. And you've kind of slowly transitioned over to technology and blockchain. Can you walk us through how your career evolution kind of went?
Yeah, I mean, that's been far from a straight line for sure. My undergrad was chemical engineering. So growing up in France, I would say if you're an okay student, they will just really push you through like the scientific track, which was great because I was very interested in science. I always wanted to be a researcher, and I definitely scratched that itch. I did my undergrad in chemical engineering. I had like 1 year work experience working in Japan for a chemical company. And then at the time, biotech was booming, so I wanted to kind of orient myself towards biotech. Then I ended up doing my PhD in genomics in the United States. I originally was going to be there for 2 years, and then that turned into 5, and turned into like almost 10 years in the States, doing PhD, postdoc, some research work. Yeah, so I felt like after maybe the first 10 years of my career slash advanced studies, I had pretty much gone through the whole cycle, and I wanted to find like my next challenge. And growing up, my dad's an entrepreneur, so I was always kind of also curious about the business side of things, and so that's how I ended up going back to school. Did my MBA. I still wanted to be involved in technology and innovation, but I wanted to see it from the corporate side. So yeah, that's how I ended up NYU, and then NYU got recruited by Samsung, the corporate strategy for a few years, and then followed by business development and global partnerships for a few more years in health tech. So gravitated towards health-related stuff, but ended up, blockchain really opened up so many opportunities because it is a very horizontal technology that could apply to all these different verticals. and now I'm actually more focused on fintech and payments applications of blockchain at the Hedera Foundation. So it's definitely, again, not been a straight line, but I think it's interesting to kind of challenge yourself every few years and really kind of dive into something new. It keeps your mind young, and it's I think I see myself. I mean, I think crypto has kept me definitely busy for the past like 6, 7 years. The fact that I've stuck with it is because there's always it's moving fast. There's always so much to learn, and it could be applied to so many areas that it's. I mean, I could see this like kind of sustain my intellectual curiosity in the long run.
Fascinating. I want to circle back to that kind of first exposure to blockchain technology. You mentioned it was a digital health related project. What was the moment where you really got interested in blockchain technology? Was that first project spark your interest, or did it kind of take some time for the ideas to marinate and your interest to really develop?
Yeah, I think maybe it took, I don't know, 6 months or so. And I think a lot of it was also the part of the opportunity, being able to join a new team, feeling the energy, right? And I went from a very large, well-structured company like Samsung to a still a large tech company, but Line is like a few thousand actually employees. But the energy was just different. The average age was much lower. So at Samsung, I was young. At Line, I was old. I just like to be part of something new, and I think there's something to that. Like, it was a bit of a perfect storm between, of course, the discipline, that being part of a growing area at a growing company. To me, that's a good combination. And yeah, Samsung, it's been a really good experience. Obviously, I learned a lot. I made some really great coworkers, and I worked on very exciting projects. But I felt like a little bit more of a cog in the wheel. You know what I mean? Like, being part of a younger team and part of a new business, you definitely have there's different energy to it, and you can feel like everything's possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can definitely relate to kind of feeling like a cog at some larger companies. At Line, can you talk us through your journey towards, so you joined Line. How did you get started investing into blockchain companies and startups?
So the idea came about pretty early on when I joined the team. So with my boss at the time, like, there was an interest, and I had been interested in doing investment work as well. I had worked on startup scouting, tech scouting. At Samsung, I had done several projects, and I felt like I was well equipped to start doing the due diligence on some of the blockchain projects. We wanted to have a small in-house fund, so that would have the freedom to invest in token issuing entities. There was another team called Line Ventures that was already pretty well established as corporate VC team, but they didn't know how to deal with crypto. So we kind of set up. It was called Unblock Ventures. It was a small in-house fund where we're investing out of the balance sheet, and it was very much an experiment. But it allowed us to do both strategic and more financial oriented investments. So we did this for the time that I was there for about 3 years, and we were lucky also because we started investing in 2018 and exited at the top of the market in 2021. So we had very good returns. We were lucky. I mean, not everything was a home run, but overall, the fund returned very well. And then, in 2021, actually, Line and Yahoo Japan merged, and so that the whole like crypto exposure wasn't necessarily part of the plan anymore. And that's when I ended up moving on.
I see. So you've been investing in blockchain startups or companies since 2018. Can you tell us what are some of the key qualities you look for in a project before deciding to invest?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is the same as, what a traditional VC will look for, right? You look for, especially if it's early stages, look for a very strong team, experienced. If they have exits, even better. You want to look at the not just depends if it's an infrastructure play for blockchain, then it gets very technical. Then you really want to have the opinions of engineers on your team. And also potential users. Depends. Is there an MVP? Can we try it out? Can we look at the code? We want to understand the business model. How they're going to make money. Is it going to be all captured in token? Is it going to be captured in equity? If there's an offering with either or both, you want to understand where the value is being captured, and that's something that's a bit different from the traditional VC investment. And also depending on your, what kind of hat you're wearing and I've been mostly wearing the corporate hat is finding the synergies, right? So at Line, I was also kind of looking for synergies with the main business as we were launching like exchanges and brokerage services and things like that, and dApps and so that was one consideration. And now, as part of the Hedera ecosystem, I also look at, hey, are they building on Hedera? What kind of value are they adding? I look at on-chain metrics, obviously. Will they create transactions, accounts? So there's a lot of things. And of course, depends if it's a very early stage startup, there's of course less to look at. It's more dependent on how good the team is and whether you have a feel for the kind of problem they are trying to solve. Is it something meaningful? And is there any good signs in the market that it's ready to adopt this kind of solution? So yeah, I mean, there's also those types of considerations. If it's a later stage, like a Series A onward, then you have a lot more to look at. You have financials and everything. I would say it makes it easier to de-risk your investments, but yeah, we're playing mainly, I would say, from pre-seed to Series A right now. And then in terms of angel investments, I look at mainly seed and pre-seed, as well as token opportunities, of course.
So you touched very briefly on kind of the differences between investing in, a conventional the conventional corporate setting versus in like the blockchain space. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the differences since you have experience in both?
Yeah, I would say corporate setting, your stakeholders are different, right? Unless you've taken external funding. If it's a corporate setting, it's pretty easy. You just want to make sure your CFO is happy, right? That you have returns, and then you want to show the business units are happy because you will find you will find like good strategic partners. And I think in terms of reporting is a little bit more streamlined. The traditional VC, you have LPs, right? And so this is a different dance. You have to go and fundraise with your LPs, and not everybody is necessarily going to be on the same page, right? You have more stakeholders to manage, probably more reporting to do, more communications to do. From an investment perspective, you're not going to have the strategic plays that you would have with a corporate setting. I think as corporate, especially under a company that's relatively well known, you can get into deals relatively easily because of that brand name. As a VC, if you're just starting out, you have to kind of establish yourself, and that's I think it maybe takes more time. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Well, most of my experience has been on the corporate side, though.
Okay, and I've a bit of a philosophical question for you. So there's, I saw you referred to as a blockchain investor. I don't remember where I saw that lingo. Do you consider yourself a blockchain investor or a crypto investor? And what to you are the differences between blockchain and crypto?
That's a good question. I think blockchain is a broader term, right? Blockchain encompasses crypto. Um, Crypto is if you're focusing on token issuing entities only. And so I don't limit myself to token sales. There are blockchain companies that don't issue a token or not planning to, and offer equity. There are crypto companies that will issue a token, but they also offer equity, so you can sometimes they do hybrid offerings like equity plus a token warrant. So yeah, I think blockchain is a bit broader term that encompasses both the crypto and the non-crypto issuing startups.
I see. Thanks for explaining. And so since you've been investing in the blockchain space since 2018, what are some of the key trends you've noticed over time?
Yeah, I think every cycle is kind of led by a narrative, right? There's each narrative has I don't know, 6 to 10 months window or so. That's very interesting, right? Being able to catch those. And I feel like timing also is very important when you're looking at tokens. That's, when you're just a traditional VC looking at equity, it's more of a long game, right? Your fund life is going to be, 6 to 10 years. And you're really just kind of looking at fundamentals like hard cash revenue. And crypto is a bit different. Your exit timeline is shorter. You will have lockups as an investor, but even with lockups, you'll still be able to exit faster than you would probably with a equity play. So having a good timing when it comes to those market cycles is very important. Sometimes it trumps the fundamentals. It's a little bit unfair, but sometimes it just trumps the fundamentals because the project may not be even that ready yet or have that much traction. But if they're doing a good job with marketing and listing and the timing's right and the hype is right, then you can actually make decent exits, even if maybe later on the project doesn't actually live up to the expectations. So yeah, that's one thing that I found was quite different from just looking at the hard fundamentals and so who's backing and so there's just a lot of things at play. Are your investors dumping? Do you have are your tokenomics sound? So these are things that will actually impact the token price.
Very interesting. And
yeah.
Could you speak a little bit about what it's like from the investor's side? How have conditions changed? So obviously, like ICOs are kind of no longer a thing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more. I haven't been in the crypto space that long, but it seems like, there's a lot of discussion around lockup periods and kind of vesting schedules now as compared to maybe 4 years ago. Can you talk a little bit about how kind of the conditions for investors and like the terms that people are kind of talking about and considering have changed over time?
I think, there's definitely maybe more emphasis on understanding, what the supply is going to look like. And of course, you want to know what your vesting schedule looks like, also what the team vesting schedule looks like, the planning for the offerings. That, to me, that hasn't changed that much since I started investing. But it's just it's not glossed over. Like maybe, I mean, in some cases, especially at the peak of bull markets where there's peak FOMO, these kind of things can become a bit more secondary, or maybe not deal breakers anymore. I remember, like, I don't know, was it 2021 or so, like when things were, you know, like the NFT craze was at its peak. You know, like the competitive projects, they will like only give you like 2 days to do the due diligence, and that's like crazy because you don't really have time. Yeah, they're like, okay, we're closing the round, and this is the time where you don't want to be investing, actually. Because then a lot of money comes in very, very easily, very quickly, and at valuations that are not attractive for investors. That's actually when you want to slow down and be like, okay, this is not the right environment. Yeah. So I think valuations are also very important, and they tend to vary based on the cycles.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Sounds like sound advice. You must have seen dozens, if not hundreds, of startups and projects. Could you tell us about the time where you felt like you had the biggest impact on a project's success as an investor or a mentor?
I think as a corporate investor, you know, I've helped some of the projects actually set up partnerships. You know, so when I was at Line, some of the projects actually ended up developing on Line's blockchain and you know, releasing a dApp on the wallet, and so yeah, those are things that, you know, you could see a tangible impact on kind of being on their cap table. You're able to do something like giving them an outlet. And now in the Hedera Foundation, it's quite similar. There's actually a lot more behind the scenes work, I would say, compared to Line, because we help with the go-to-market, and it's about, you know, bringing in the ecosystem pieces together, introducing the infrastructure that can be used for these projects as they build on Hedera. So it could be wallets, it could be other, you know, custodians, you name it, whatever they need. Like, you could try to like figure out the right providers for them so that they can go to market faster. We help with PR. Sometimes you can introduce clients or partners. So almost in some cases for the portfolios that I work with the closest, either grant recipients or investment recipients. In some cases, I feel like almost an extension of their BD team, because we talk like every week, and there's always something that you can do for them.
I see. And one project that you're considering advising is the Binary Holdings. How did you first learn about this project, and what drew you to it?
So I first learned through one of my friends who's been in the blockchain space for years, and he introduced Manish, and I was quite impressed with the vision. You know, it's a very ambitious team. They've already accomplished quite a lot. Yeah, so started really learning about Binary Holdings from there on, which was earlier this year. I was lucky enough to meet a big part of the team in Bangkok also a couple months ago, and I got to learn more about the plans and the achievements so far. I like the approach, the B2B approach, but then that has a reach on millions of users. I think maybe coming from a corporate background, I like this kind of like channel plays. With Binary Holdings, it's very focused on telcos. And I think it's good when you see a good mix of Web2 and Web3 experience. So very often you have Web2 companies that don't know anything about Web3 that want to go into Web3, or Web3 companies that don't know anything about Web2 but still want to solve Web2 problems without having the right experience and knowing the pain points. So yeah, I felt like Binary Holdings, like the team was well experienced enough, and especially knew the telcos very well, or some of them had worked there, and kind of was very strategic about how they want to build it. Like on paper, it looks like they're doing a lot of different things, but it kind of fits into a bigger vision, and that's what drew me to the project.
So you hinted a little bit about interaction with telcos, B2B. How would you, let's take a step back and say, how would you describe the binary holdings to someone who had never heard of it before? And like, why might it be valuable or impactful?
I would say in this current stage, just like a mini consortium of, not consortium, I mean like a mini conglomerate, mini Web3 conglomerate. And it's focused on solving problems for telcos using Web3 tools. So problems being, it could be user engagement. So for example, with Fando, it's bringing people to the hub app and letting people have social media on there and spending more time on the platform, spending more data on the platform, obviously. So it's good for the telcos. At the end of the day, telcos want to sell data, right? So the more like B2B projects, focusing on like the digital twins, for example, that's another need that telcos have is we want enterprise tools so that we can sell data, right? So, and this is really just kind of bringing a menu of offerings to telcos, whether it looks more B2C or B2B. At the end of the day, it's using blockchain to kind of bridge that distance between the end user and the telco, or the client and the telco.
And what about the binary holdings stood out to you compared to other projects you've seen?
Well, so I hadn't really seen this zoom into that specific industry. I've seen telco related projects, but maybe more infrastructure plays, things like more payments focused or data focused. So this was the angle was new. And then again, I mentioned like a good balance between the Web2 and Web3 expertise. That's something that usually is hard to get. So I appreciated that.
I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about your kind of personal background. So the crypto community is a very international community, and I think you're a great example of this. So you speak French, Korean, and Japanese, and you've studied in the US, France, and Korea. Could you tell us walk us through a little bit of your personal background and where you grew up, kind of where you studied, and kind of your life journey before becoming a crypto or blockchain investor?
Yeah, so I spent the first half or so of my life in France, just, so pretty tame, grew up in Lyon, went to school there. So I really just started moving when I was like 21. So first after my fourth year undergrad, so pretty much finished the equivalent of a US undergrad, and then moved to Japan for my internship, my co-op year. And then after Japan, I was like, I don't really feel like going home. It was a very eye-opening year for me, very, very like new experience. A lot of things were new. And then I still had 1 year to finish my engineering degree, because it's like a 5 year, it's like a 2 years prep school, 3 years of engineering. So I could have just gone back to my school in Lyon, or I could have done a dual degree. And so I was like, let me do a dual master's degree. And so I went through the schools that we had an agreement with. And then I found one that had a biotech program, because I was interested in, going into that. So I ended up North Carolina State University in their biotech program / chemical engineering department. And then, it was going to be 2 years. It turned into 5 because I joined, and then it was, I was going to do a master's project, but there's like one master's project for like 20 PhD projects. So, it turned into 5. And after that time, I felt like pretty settled in the States. I moved up the East Coast and spent some time in New York, New Jersey area. Did my postdoc in New York. I graduated into one of the recessions, when the subprime crisis. I couldn't really get a industry job. It was 2007. I ended up doing a postdoc for like to park myself there for a year. I worked on cancer research. I'm still doing genomics. Before you know it, like I spent like 11 years in the States, doing research, working for some companies, also worked for another Japanese company in New York. Worked for a hospital in infection control using DNA diagnostics, and then back to New York with NYU, and then Korea, because Samsung. Korea for 9 years. Again, I was supposed to join Samsung for 2 years, and then they renewed the contract, and ended up moving from like group level to affiliate to Samsung SDS, where I was working in health tech. And then, Line was also in Korea. COVID hit. 2021 is when I moved to Hedera. I had some HBAR in the portfolio. So, I was already familiar with the technology, it was Hashgraph originally. So joined Hedera remotely, transitioned to the foundation when it was created. And then my next and last step was Singapore. We didn't have anyone in Singapore, and I was looking to be based there. Since I'm focusing on fintech and payments, actually a good place, because it's blockchain. Blockchain is strong here, and also the regulators are very pro digital assets, and it's also a good hub to operate for the rest of Southeast Asia. So that's been the moves so far. I managed to move every few years, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't feel that hectic, because 5 years here, 10 years there. It's actually relatively long enough time that I could feel like I'm well acclimated in each place.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Singapore is a big finance hub, so that makes a lot of sense for fintech and blockchain. Mm-hmm. So you described kind of the various roles that you have and the many investments that you're involved in. How do you balance your professional responsibilities with your personal life? And you mentioned also having twins as well.
Yeah, I get a lot of help. That's the only way, right? Again, being able to work from home helps, because I have more freedom over my schedule. So I actually like the super early morning calls, because that means like if I'm done by 8, then I can drop off the kids in school, and then I walk back, and then I start working again. And then the super late night calls are, not necessarily in the same day, but that's also okay, because then that means my kids are already sleeping. So I could just kind of go back and get a couple more hours out of my day. And then usually afternoons are good for calls with Europe. And I managed to kind of spread it out. I'm blessed to have also a husband who's very hands-on. And we started the kids in school pretty early. So 18 months, we did like the playgroup thing in kindergarten, and
that is very early.
And it's been great. The girls love it. And now they're in the second year. And so we managed. We try to keep things within the neighborhood. It's easier. It's very difficult to get a car in Singapore. It's very expensive. So, try to keep the logistics as simple as possible when it comes to the school runs and things like that. Definitely helps.
Yeah, that was one thing that struck me. I was in Singapore for the first time earlier this year, and I was shocked at how empty the roads were, and why were there no cars. Like I was in Bangkok right before, and I was like, the contrast was mind blowing.
Yeah, you
So
look at the COE prices. It's like that permit you need to just own a car, and it's more than 100K Sing dollars just to have the right to own the car, right? So obviously it's not for everyone.
yeah, definitely not. So what do you like to do in your leisure time? Like how do you relax and recharge?
So yeah, there's not a lot of leisure time to begin with, but my favorite thing to do, I would say, is to go for a swim, which I enjoy because like in Korea, there's no swimming pools whatsoever. Like, definitely not in a residential setting. And then there's like, a few like hotel pools and stuff, but like here you just kind of have to like travel, go to the beach to get a good swim. And here, it's pretty much everywhere. Most condos will have a pool. So I would say that's my favorite fun thing to do. Past few years I've been doing more like meditation type. It's not really a pastime, but it's more like trying to improve my sleep and keep my sanity. Because just with crypto, you're always on, like you're always like your brain's always on. There's always like people messaging you. I don't know, at any point in time, I must have like 40 conversations going on, like between our existing grantees, new portfolios, and so it's you need at some point you need to kind of like learn to slow down. And I used to do a lot of yoga. I don't really have that time anymore, but I need to pick that up too.
Yeah, and that leads very well into my next question, because in your work, you're thinking a lot about strategy and technology and finance. What are some of the sources of inspiration or ideas or news that you draw from?
So that's, crypto news are very, very, a lot of them are just really kind of narrative driven. There's a lot of pay to play. So I always kind of try to take that with a grain of salt. So that's, of course, Twitter and all that, like you kind of get the sentiment, but you really have to take that with a grain of salt. For me, actually, I think some of my, I would say, most interesting sources are more like private chats with people that I trust, that I know are in the industry, and just kind of being able to see where their thinking is at, what they're working on. So a lot of it's like these chats and like just my network, understanding what they're working on. And also I don't just go to the crypto events. I actually go to industry events. So it gives you a different perspective. But like the crypto events are very focused on just one thing, and it's a bit of an echo chamber. But like, for example, like just focusing on fintech and payments, like I go to like a payments conference and fintech conferences, and then you really understand kind of where the industry is going and how fast it's going and what the sentiment is about using blockchain and crypto or digital assets. I guess in this area, it's more like we call it digital assets because it's more regulated. And then also being exposed to regulators and central banks, right? Like that gives you like a really broad spectrum of data and thoughts to sample from. Otherwise, I mean, I think just like things like Twitter and the crypto media, it's quite limited in what it can bring in terms of perspective, and it's very trading focused. Where I'm looking more at like adoption and onboarding capital markets and things like that, and real world use cases like trade finance and you name it. So I try to have a broad sampling of, and it happens naturally because of my work.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to pivot a little bit to talking about the future. And what are the biggest ways you think blockchain technology will impact the future of finance and fintech?
Yeah, I mean, I think the digitization of assets is really what's going to change finance. I believe a lot of assets, if not most, are going to be on-chain. So, and possibly natively on-chain, so issued first on-chain as opposed to being, issued off-chain and then tokenized. So yeah, I see this, like, you could look at capital markets, right? How big they are compared to crypto markets. Like crypto markets are like, a couple trillion. But if you look at capital markets, it's much, much bigger than that. So eventually, as we onboard currencies, right? Stable coins, CBDCs. We upgrade payment infrastructure. So that's multi-chain rails that are going to be disrupting the remittance systems, the payment systems. And then you onboard all the securities, bonds, money markets, equity, debt, you name it. So yeah, you end up with a whole system that's going to be upgraded. It's not going to be replaced completely, right? There's so much inertia in this space because it is regulated. It needs to work. There's a lot of legacy technology behind it. So I don't have I think Web3 is fantastic. DeFi is fantastic. It's a great laboratory for experimenting, and finance will definitely be using some of these primitives. But there's going to have to be a patchwork of solutions and integrations that will have to happen, for a whole industry to onboard assets on chain. So I think it's going to take some time, but we are at this, I think it's the beginning phase of it, where now it's not just startups, but institutions have started onboarding assets. All central banks are looking into CBDCs, and yeah, that's a long cycle, but it's happening. So slow and steady, I would say. Maybe it's a different pace as a regular crypto. But the signs are there. The interest is there. Definitely through my work, I've seen like the past couple of years, a lot of interest in the RWA space, stable coins, also a lot of interest there, and some good projects that we're backing up there. So yeah, I think this is going to be very transformative for fintech in general, for capital markets.
Yeah, I can certainly see a future where the majority of assets are digitized. So looking at it from the other angle, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing blockchain technology today, and how do you think they might be able to be addressed?
Yeah, that's a good question. The blockchain is still new, right? It's new and it's very fragmented. There's a lot of layer ones out there and a lot of layer twos out there. Is it going to be a winner take all kind of scenario? I don't know. I think we are seeing some players that are specializing. Some are just specializing in finance. Some are trying to do it all, like I don't know, Solana or Avalanche, but like trying to find some pockets here and there. Hedera is also, I would say, very versatile, but was trying to build a good presence in fintech. There's definitely, so interoperability is going to be something that will be very, very important. There might be one chain that does, that becomes a market leader in, one area, and then another chain that becomes market leader in another area, and they will need to talk to each other. And then you also have, you may have some regulatory, considerations, and maybe some stable coins will be allowed in some jurisdictions and not in others. So yeah, definitely, like you see a lot of bridging happening. You see, a lot of cross-chain messaging protocols like emerging. I would say, yeah, of course, like my role is really focused on like making sure Hedera has like really great use cases, but that shouldn't stop there, right? Because we want to be able to say like atomically swap a Hedera native digital asset with like an Avalanche native one, right? So like we need to support not just our own applications, but being able to be part of that greater crypto ecosystem, and so that requires infrastructure. So there's definitely infrastructure investments to be done. And you see in the payment space, you see the emergence of these multi-chain payment rails like MasterCard MTN, which is still in sandbox mode, or UDPN also still in sandbox mode, but like it's coming. It's coming. So yeah, I would say that fragmentation is a challenge for now. A lot of blockchains also have performance issues, whether it's uptime or throughput. Thankfully, Hedera has always been like super stable and very fast and very affordable in terms of transaction fees, and there's no surge pricing or no front running. So that's been very very useful for adopters. But like the other day I was looking at a demo between, like, it was an atomic swap between an Ethereum native and a Hedera native, and like asset, and like the Hedera native asset, that confirmation came right away, but like for Ethereum I had to wait several minutes to see it go through, right?
Right.
So
yeah, definitely had that experience before. For people who are interested in entering the crypto and blockchain space, but are new, what advice would you give to them?
Entering from a user perspective or from a work perspective?
From a user perspective, let's say.
Yeah. I would say, really just don't just read about it, just go and do it, right? Just assign a little small budget, and just try experimenting, experiment across networks. Start maybe somewhere, like maybe just start with one and then branch out. Try a little bit of DeFi, try some swaps, try try fun stuff. Also, there's games, there's NFTs, there's a lot of also consumer focused things that are fun to try out. Read about it, but don't obsess over it. I think it's just keep it light for, like, I mean, it depends. Like, some people just want to go and like become quant traders, and that's great too. Then in that case, you really just have to be prepared to be glued to your screen and to be to really develop skills and coding and everything, right? So yeah, if it depends on like how much time you're willing to dedicate. Trading is a dangerous game. You're up against bots, you're up against institutions. Don't bet the house on it, but do a few things that you think that you enjoy, and only allocate what you think you don't necessarily need for your day-to-day survival, because it is quite easy to really get into it. I think a lot of people think of crypto as this is maybe a generational, once in a generation opportunity to build wealth, right? There's some truth to that, but there's also some risk to that. So just being aware of that, like, don't go at it with a gambling mindset. And it's also, I would say, it's good to not just go by yourself, like find some friends or a group to join, and people who could discuss projects and discuss because like you're never going to have all the information or just by yourself. And it's always good to have other people's opinions, people who've used the protocol, who, may have gone through the kinks before you, is always useful. So doing it in isolation is a bit more dangerous, because like you don't have a sounding board. And it's more fun to do this socially because like, yeah, you're sharing like tips with your friends and like, what do you think about this new coin? And what do you think about this new project? And yeah, sometimes red flags pop up, and it's something you wouldn't have necessarily picked up yourself.
Very wise words of advice. Thank you. And before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about your journey or the future of blockchain technology?
It's a broad question, but I don't know. I think it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been great having you on.
I think just the journey in itself, it's not it's something that I value just as much as the whatever the destination, right? And I've found good camaraderie. I've found great things to learn, and mainly I would say the big one of the big points of satisfaction in the journey so far has been working for a technology that I believe in. That's important because if I don't believe in a product, like it's really hard to like kind of convince people to use it. But the main thing is for me, it's working with the founders directly. That's been I would say the main satisfaction that I get is first I learned a lot from founders. I appreciate founders. I'm not brave enough to be one, so I live kind of vicariously through one. Because it takes, I'm risk averse, so I definitely admire folks who like put everything into a project, and whether they succeed or not, like just that dedication and the willingness to just really put everything in the balance to make it work. That gives me a lot of energy, I think. At the end of the day, it's not just red candles and green candles. It's I think it's about the people. So yeah, I have definitely learned a lot from founders, and I have a lot of respect for what they do.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you. So before we wrap up, I have a rapid fire round of just a few questions where you just give a 1 or 2 word answer. And it'll just be quick. Are you ready? So if you had to describe crypto in 1 word, what would it be?
Fast-paced, I would say.
Okay. What is the last Web3 related thing you searched or Googled?
I've been doing quite a bit of research on like FX dexes these days. Yeah, it's a stablecoin focused dexes.
Okay. If Satoshi Nakamoto invited you to dinner, what would you ask them first?
I think I'd be curious, like why he actually distanced himself from the project. Like, why did he go underground? And then maybe I would ask him if he likes where Bitcoin is at right now. Like not price wise, but just in terms of, generally speaking, in terms of adoption. And did you think it was gonna, become so big?
Right.
And does he like the direction of,
Yeah, certainly there's been a lot of philosophical disagreements about the direction of the project.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your biggest crypto gain or loss? You can talk in terms of multiples or percentages.
I mean, loss is easy, right? It's like, a portfolio that just never launched. So it's like 0.
100%.
And then gain, some of my portfolios that did like, I don't know, exited like was 3,000% or something. So like something like 35x on some of the pre-sales. Yeah.
Nice. What is your favorite crypto wallet?
Well, I mean, I have to go with the Hedera native wallets, and there's 2 that I love and that are very broadly used. It's Blade Wallet and Hashback. And definitely invite the ones who the audience is not familiar with Hedera, try those out.
Okay,
Play
great.
That space.
If you could meet any person in the crypto space, who would it be?
Right now, it would be Tigran Gambarian. maybe you haven't heard of him. He's like a legend in the crypto crime space. So he's was an early IRS agent, and then he worked on the very high profile cases, dark marketplaces. He busted like several of these dark webs. And when I was in Korea also, like there was a case called Welcome to Video, which is kind of horrendous because there was a marketplace for child abuse, sexual videos, and he was like instrumental in like also catching this guy. Now he's at Binance, and you may have heard, Binance they've had troubles in Nigeria. He's the one who's in jail right now. And he just kind of wrong place, wrong time. He was not involved in any of the decision making for Binance in Nigeria. He was just there to train the authorities in how to catch crypto criminals. And so if I get to meet him, that means he's out. And so really looking forward to him being freed, because he shouldn't be there. And I haven't met him yet. It's kind of, we do have friends in common, but I think he would have like just such a incredible experience, right? To share. I think I would love to meet him as a free man.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. I have to read more about that. And last question, what's the craziest or most contrarian prediction you have for the future of crypto and blockchain?
I don't know, crazy or not, but definitely I think capital markets are going to be, by and large, are going to be on chain, and maybe sooner than we think.
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah, and I also think that what we think of crypto as today is actually going to be a smaller part of bigger industry. So Web3 is actually probably not going to be what's going to be the biggest part of the pie.
Yeah, that I can definitely see a future where that is true. Well, Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure having you on, and I've certainly learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners have as well. And you can just give us a quick summary of like what each photo is. Yeah.
Okay, so this is like growing up. I'm like on the left here. I don't know, I must be like 7 years old, maybe, or 6 years old. And yeah, this is in Spain. This is a vacation picture with me and my sister. We kind of took the same picture like every few years. So I have this one. This is the first one, but then I have one in high school, one in college.
Oh, that's
the
cute.
Same steps. Yeah. I mean, grew up in France, but would go to Spain every summer. And just have like just good memories there. So probably the happiest times of my childhood was there.
Nice. You definitely look happy in the photo.
I was on vacation, so not having to go to school. This is Japan. So some of the folks in my cohort there, actually the gentleman because it was a government program like between the EU and Japan. There's like this exchange every year. It's still running. It's called Vulcanus. It's still running, where they send fresh graduates from Europe to Japan and from Japan to Europe.
So this is different than the co-op program that you mentioned.
It is.
Or is
it
it?
is. It's the same.
Okay. Oh, it's the same.
It was my co-op here, but then I had to apply for this program separately. They had like 10 spots, and for I don't know, more than 1,000 applicants. So I mean, by some miracle, I managed to get in. And so 12 Europeans, we all like landed in Japan at the same time. We spent 4 months language school, like intensive Japanese classes, and then we got dispatched in all different areas of Japan. I ended up in Shikoku, which is like a little island. I mean, not a little island. It was one of the 4 main islands, but it's a more rural one. Working on a chemical engineering site. But yeah, I felt very close to my cohort because we just like spent so much time together, especially in the beginning. And we would kind of meet up in Tokyo every now and then. The gentleman in the yellow jacket is actually now the new COO of Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Javier Olivan. He succeeded. Is the successor of Sheryl Sandberg, but he's very low key, so you don't really hear about him. But yeah, really he was in my program. That was before. this is before, it's 2002, so 2001, 2002. And yeah, in the red jacket is his wife now. She was a girlfriend at the time. My sister was visiting, so she's just sitting right next to me. And then there's the second blonde girl with a white jacket was from Greece. The guy who's like squatting was from Sweden. But yeah, we had like 12 people. Like I shared another picture where everybody's actually there. The one where we're just kind of wearing these like vests.
Okay.
That one has everyone in the program.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun, honestly.
That was a fun year. Yeah, it was like kind of gave me the taste for kind of, just being overseas and seeing new things. So yeah, this was my team at Samsung SDS. So my second job at Samsung. So you can see like in the first row, second from left was my VP, and then the gentleman seated on the far right was my direct boss, my supervisor. And I think we had a guest, from Denmark, so we were like just kind of showing in the showroom. Some of my team members, yeah, the tall guy on the left, I was working with him, and then the girl on the right also it was in my team. We were all from the global strategy group originally. So when I landed in Korea, we joined first the global strategy group, which is like it's kind of an in-house consultancy. And we got to work on a lot of different projects for a couple of years, and then after that, the expectation is either you kind of go specialize, become like a principal or something within the consulting practice, or it was actually more common to go into line management, and like you pick an affiliate and then you end up kind of doing work there. So it's the track that I went through, and I think that was my favorite team at Samsung, because in GSG, I love the colleagues, but we were on project basis. So the team would always kind of rotate, work with different people every time. But this one at SDS, my boss super great, and my colleagues were really nice, and VP also, like I just really like the people. I'm still very much in touch with my boss. The project got spun out. I shared a few pictures from that project with working with first responders. We did a lot of training with a lot of testing in hospitals and with firefighters. So I was working on a wearable device called the S-Patch, which is a ECG. It says ECG patch essentially, and then we put together an offering with AI analysis of the ECG and real-time tracking and all that stuff. So not just for patients, but also for folks like police and firefighters, who work in very stressful conditions, and for whom, like, very often a cardiac arrest is one of the key causes of death on the job.
Okay, yeah, that's really cool. I'm very much into like quantified self stuff, so it's very cool.
Yeah, so yeah, this is at the HR Development Center in Samsung. So we had this like 2-week-long orientation thing, like shortly after joining Samsung. It was very interesting. So all the so they had one in English, right, for all the foreigners that had joined within the past 6 months. They ran this program every 6 months. They run it also in Korean for the Korean hires, but the Korean hires are usually not experienced hires. They're just straight out of college. And for the foreigners, it's typically people that are kind of recruited at a more senior level. And so my cohort, my GSG cohort was there, but there was also folks from different business units and different affiliates. So it's a kind of good way to kind of network, and they keep you busy like 12 hours a day. You're not allowed to leave the premises. There's some fun stuff, like, do some games and stuff. Like one of the pictures that I shared is also like we're all wearing that same like blue, like, sweatpants and hoodie. And then they make people like do group ads, so there's like a bar and stuff, and like people just like doing group ads. So like these kind of like little competition type things to I guess to build like camaraderie between people, and yeah, they do a lot of training, and like they kind of teach you about the history of the company, and uh, yeah, some of like the legendary moments, and a lot of information about the chairman, his vision, and things like that. So it's just like it's this. It's not really indoctrination, but it's really just like to get you a feel for what the company is about, to understand the culture,
Okay.
and yeah, but yeah, we had to stay there overnight, like, so it was interesting. Shared a room with another newcomer, and yeah, so I think a lot of good connections were made in these 2 weeks.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a lot of fun. And finally, we have two more.
Yeah, that was last year at the Singapore Fintech Festival. And we had a booth there.
So these are all
So
Hedera
in the
people.
back, yeah. In the back, you can see these are the logos, are like the logos of the governing council members. So they are the companies that operate the network.
Okay.
So you can see the bottom, 8 or so. There's like 32 companies, but yeah, it's a mix of people across the ecosystem. So some of us are from the Hedera Foundation, some of us are from Swirls Labs, which is the tech arm of Hedera. We have founders, like the gentleman on the right I used to work with him at Hedera, and he's now the founder of Blade Wallet, which I mentioned. We have someone from the Hashgraph Association, the guy with the white shirt and the vest and the jacket. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, some good people and it's interesting because we really work across company lines. Yeah, it's very collaborative. And
very cool.
Since we're remote, it's hard to see each other, like we don't see each other on a daily basis. A lot of these folks are based in Asia Pacific, not all of them, but a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So conferences and like these kind of events are kind of good to connect in person.
Yeah, it's tough when everyone works remotely. You never get to really connect in person.
Yeah. And last one is, I guess it's a speaking engagement. Like I try to time, if we're not exhibiting, I try to time my events around whether I get an invitation to speak. And well, first because I want to spread the word, and then second, it definitely helps you get like free tickets for myself and for the team, and so it's always nice. So this one was in Bangkok at the Southeast Asia Blockchain Week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. There's one other thing I actually wanted to ask you on, kind of that I'm personally interested in, but also might make for good podcast content, which is it's like you had your whole career in kind of genomics and kind of research, right? At what point did you feel like you had accomplished what you wanted to accomplish in that area and wanted to move on? Like, how did you reach that point and that decision to move on to a new challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it was definitely not, I think part of it was also a gradual change, right? Like it wasn't necessarily like, I'm done with this. I still actually went back to genomics at some point when I was at Samsung. I did spend like 6 months or so on a genomics related project, which was really cool because I could use my background. But for me, it was more of a decision to move on from academia than to move on from the field. I felt the pace was too slow in academia, and you really just focused on publishing. So the whole system's built around publishing. And by the time your article shows in a journal, it's been like more than a year, sometimes two, since you've done the experiment. Like it takes a while for the review and everything. So I think as I get older, I get more impatient. I want to see my impact faster. And so that was one thing. And second, also it is an extractive system. I saw I saw a lot of folks like postdocs, underpaid, kind of trapped because, they're foreigners. They can't really get a visa easily otherwise. They have to spend years from postdoc to another postdoc to maybe assistant professor to like this and that. And maybe for like the odd chance of being a tenured professor. For me, like I never really aimed to be a professor. I wanted to kind of go out in the real world and actually do maybe research in a corporate setting or I don't know, tech in a corporate setting, but not necessarily just be in academia because I felt like it's more, there's more to this world.
Yeah.
But overall, I think the odds are against you in academia as if you add the start at the bottom of the pyramid, there's a lot of churn. You're not that well compensated as a researcher. And it's just always on. I mean, crypto is always on, but in a different way. It's always on, like in the lab, in life sciences. So it's very different. Yes. Like, at least I can do a lot of things on devices and on the go, and I can multitask. But lab work it takes another level of dedication. And there's a bit of, I think there's a bit of a crisis, because it's the opportunities versus the sacrifices that you make. It's a bit out of balance. And when you are still a PhD student, sometimes there's conflicts of interest, because you get to the point where you become very productive towards your later years, and that's when very often your PI doesn't want to let you graduate because they want to keep you in, while you're churning out papers. And I've seen this happen to other people. I was lucky. My PI was and that's my PhD advisor essentially. My PI was great, and I had a good relationship with him, and so I didn't have this kind of issue. But I've seen people kind of being held up, even though they were doing a great job, and actually maybe because they were doing a great job. I've also seen people lose funding in the middle, and having to deliver pizzas to make ends meet because they want to keep doing their research, but they also need to eat. So it's a tough place to be. It's a tough place to be. And as I love science, but I realized I could do science elsewhere also. I think I'm still interested in genomics and I read papers and stuff. And actually, whenever there's like a medical condition in the family, I'm the one having to do all the research. And then, so I definitely can still use that background. I think academia, by just in and of itself, it was more for me a reason to not just spend my whole career in academia, because I didn't see why I should stay. Well, there's so many other things that I can do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And honestly, that I don't know if you remember, I told you I was in a PhD program at Berkeley, and I mastered out. And you described a lot of my thoughts basically around not wanting to stay in academia, opportunity costs.
I almost left halfway because I felt like I was burning out. And I had this talk with my advisor, and he was like, just take a few weeks, just chill, take a few weeks to think about it. And then like, he didn't pressure me or anything. He was like, just take a few weeks off, and like, don't make your decision so quickly. And I ended up staying, and I mean, no regrets. I think it was still good that I finished it, but I can definitely see why you wouldn't want to go all the way. And it's a time commitment, right? And there's an opportunity cost to it, because during that time you're not getting advancement the way you would in a corporate setting.
Yeah, definitely. And I came from a kind of the hedge fund world, and I transitioned into academia. So certainly felt the opportunity cost.
Yeah. I mean, you see when all your friends are in finance and stuff. For me, I was like the first like scientist in my family, the first engineer in my family. So no one really had an opinion on whether I was doing the right thing. but I realized as I moved to as I started pursuing the MBA and more like corporate stuff, like I could feel closer to my dad because he was a businessman and he would like relate more and he could advise me
Mm.
more, and uh, that was nice in a way, because before that it's like I couldn't really share much of what I do with my family. They're like, oh, okay, okay, and then they would every 6 months they would ask me, so what do you do again? Like I was like explaining. Because
Yeah.
but then when I started doing things that are a bit more like down to earth, then we could relate more, we could connect more, and I could
Right.
actually for the first time like get proper advice from my dad, because like that was like some of the things like there was he could use his experience to guide me.
Yeah. You were
Awesome.
great, kind of just giving your opinions and your stories. You did really, really, yeah, really great. So really appreciate you
All
having
right.
you on.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.